We are back, guys, after a bit of a break there. Kingzone did go down to Griffin in game number 1. Was a close one up to about 33 minutes, and then all hell broke loose.
I think there was a lot of good moments for Kingzone in this game, and I thought they were building well during the early to mid game, but then this happened where they walked in and their team fighting wasn't as razor sharp as it once was. They definitely were flagging a little bit in this team fight, but you think, okay, everyone makes a mistake. BDD's working on his items. They'll get there. I thought their decision-making on how to get picks as the game went on just got worse and worse. They seemed to have no way to use Cuz's ultimate. Every Nocturne ultimate was just used onto Gnar and wouldn't even get the fear tether to stick around, let alone any picks. And from there, Griffin just played the control game. They eventually went for Baron, and while Cuz got in for what was close to a 50-50, the timing of this play, as all the flashes were down from Kingzone, was great. The payoff of getting the Baron into the Elder ended the game. So I thought where the game needed to be won, Kingzone looked a bit limp and a bit lifeless in how to actually push the game forward, whereas Griffin made the smarter choice and thus are deserving winners.
Yeah, they certainly did. Khan's Cho'Gath wasn't really one to go back to and look at the highlights and say, hey, this was fantastic.
He had a really good laning phase. I thought his early game was really strong. The solo kill was a mistake from Sword, but also good stuff from Khan. I just think together, the Cuz Khan just keep ulting the Cho'Gath lane showed they had no plan. And they didn't have the map control that they had in the early game with all the control wards. So it definitely ran out of steam pretty quickly.
Also, I also felt like it was really just ineffective against the composition that Griffin had. I mentioned in the pick ban where it kind of felt like a takeaway. You know, the Cho'Gath into the Nocturne is something we see a lot, but against this composition, he was getting kited the entire time. It was so hard for him to ever get near anyone unless they got near to him. And I suppose it's just the life of a Cho'Gath, as they couldn't really get the fights going in their direction.
4 melees and a Swain. Everyone wanted to fight, but Griffin had the map control. They had the right Baron move. And we look at the numbers here. Of course, it was 36 minutes before we saw any meaningful movement on the gold graph, the damage numbers. It's just a team effort from the side of Griffin. Everyone, huge numbers, and Kingzone as melee champions poked out.
They really didn't do much. Cuz on the Nocturne, I think definitely we need to see Peanut come in and you know, change things up. But the way that it's been going, I mean, we talked about Cuz's numbers, not very impressive, and then Peanut from time to time looks kind of lifeless. It almost feels like Kingzone is running into a little bit of their own jungle issue here.
I don't know if it's a jungle issue or a mojo issue. It just feels like they're not the same Kingzone, and all good things must come to an end. They are our back-to-back LCK champions, but Kingzone pretty lifeless in game number 1. Griffin worthy winners. MVP is going to be Viper, moving away from the Vladimir onto the Ezreal. 6-0-5, very comfortable performance. He wasn't the game breaker of this game, but he was certainly very solid. I'm just interested to see what Kingzone we see in game number 2, because we thought we knew what Kingzone needed to be to beat Griffin. We didn't see that. They could not emulate KT and play proactive enough around the early game, and their mid game was pretty bad, and that's not what you can do. The Orianna had 4 items, and then they started team fight.
Yeah, not really what you want to see out of Griffin, or rather out of Kingzone. Speaking of Griffin, I mean, their composition with Ezreal, specifically Viper, he just had a grand old time against all those melees. He just arcane shifted against the engage from the Alistar. He hopped away from the Cho'Gath. The Swain couldn't really get in position. Yasuo was really ineffective in this game as well. But either way, guys, we are going to have a player change, as you guys did see. Kind of spoiled in the beginning because was wrapping up his stuff. We will have Peanut coming in for game 2.
They need Spring Peanut, and that's what Kingzone are desperately lacking, is an aggressive jungler who can get in there and actually dictate to Griffin. Score is able to do this from time to time. Peanut in best form is the prototype of an aggressive jungler. He made Flawless buffless. The terms were created to just, you know, explain his aggression. Battle Ward, of course, was created beyond Peanut, but we haven't seen that Peanut reliably since MSI. Time to show up today.
We'll see what they decide to do here. Griffin jumping onto the red side, this time Kingzone on the blue for game 2's pick and ban.
No surprise that the Shen will be the first ban on blue side, keeping Lehends away from that. Much more understated on the Morgana. Feels like an eon ago, but was 2v2 killed in lane. So you're happy enough if that one goes the way of Griffin. I'm a little bit surprised to see the Zoe ban on blue and red side. I assumed they were going to let Chovy pick Zoe and then just take Orianna into it, because BDD is a fantastic Orianna player, and it's a pretty good matchup for the Ori, but that is not what Kingzone have decided to go with in this series. So the hover on the Galio in game number 1, but went for the Yasuo, and probably regretting that now is BDD. Final ban will be the Morgana. Now they're saying, hey, Lehends, you feeling like Alistar is the only pick you can go towards? Feels like Alistar Pyke might end up being the support duo on both sides of this game. Could be the matchup there. First pick here for Kingzone. Feels like the Nocturne priority is an all-time low for most teams. If Tarzan joins that group as Kingzone, don't need to first pick Swain. I don't think you care if Griffin pick up the Swain. They've shown that they are not strong on this pick. So if Kingzone just go for it, though, because they've been practicing it, seems like they will.
Looked like we got the zoom in on Prey as he gave the go-ahead. He's like, yep, give me that Swain. We're just going to go for it first pick. You mentioned how the Nocturne priority is going down, but will they just pick it up anyway? It's still a strong pick in general. If played well, we didn't really see Cuz put on the star performance, but let's see what they decide to go for here first. It is going to be the Orianna hovered for the first pick.
I'd like to see the Trundle as a takeaway pick from the Swain and Trundle duo, and just the Tarzan's amazing ability on this champion. He's a fantastic Trundle player, 7-0 coming into this one. Whatever Peanut picks, whether it's a Kindred for the matchup or a level 6 jungler, we'll see Tarzan adapt. So I'm happy to see the Trundle taken here. And how aggressive will Peanut go? Because we know he can go anywhere from Nidalee to Sejuani in terms of aggression against this pick. And I guess he's feeling like he can't have a worse performance than Cuz did in game number 1 on the Nocturne, but Nocturne Swain, a dream draft in weeks past, not so much here in week 6.
You mentioned the Alistar, kind of the third pick for Lehends, but just picking it away from him is, I think they might just have to pick support here because you don't want to have 2 more bans go into that kind of pool. Alistar will be locked in for Kingzone.
Pyke doesn't feel fantastic, but it's the right pick into Alistar in terms of that matchup. However, bone skewering the Swain, the Alistar, or the Nocturne sounds terrible. Gonna see it anyways. Another amazing Lehend sign. Heart of a mother.
How many of these are we gonna get? Wrong champion, though. Good drawing, though. Fantastic.
Heart of a mother is actually pretty good turn of phrase. You're thinking of Gorilla also in those sort of terms, you know, a real support player. Always there to keep Viper alive. But I will take the Pyke, despite it being not the best against the team comp, but because, well, Lehends doesn't have too many picks behind it. The Alistar and the resets could still happen. Going into the second phase, we're seeing some coverage bans for the mid lane Orianna. Orianna also, when it comes to the current meta, one of the few non-flex picks that's going on in League of Legends. Not going to see too many teams go for the bot lane Orianna that we see in China. Eventually a team in Korea will do it just because there's some validity to it, but it doesn't seem like that'll be today. LeBlanc so far. What will Prey make of this draft, and what will BDD? Because someone has to take the Swain.
They go ahead and ban the Kennen once again. Makes you feel like maybe they want to go for some kind of tank top, something that can be denied by the Kennen. The Mundo is going to be left available unless banned by Kingzone here second. Also, the Darius left available. A lot of these strong picks still left available for the top lane based on all the focus in other lanes on the bans.
Cho'Gath was taken in a pretty spot last time out. He wouldn't be the best ball carrier, so maybe the Cho'Gath priority a bit lower, but if you just want to pick for the lane matchup and have a tank, it's the safest choice of the available ones. But we could also leave counter pick for Sword to guarantee his matchup. The Ezreal priority, a new thing for Viper, but it's something that's very, very comfortable. Ezreal Pyke doesn't beg or believe, but it is safe. They both have escapes to be able to disengage from Alistar, Nocturne, and Swain. Will Prey finally play as Jhin? Because they could flex away the Swain, and Jhin would be really strong into this team comp that we see from Griffin. But there's no guarantee that Kingzone have been playing it. They seem to be firming on it being a bot lane Swain, although the Vel'Koz has been in the marksman role as well. Looking for the final pick here from Griffin for top lane. The Jace, undefeated on the year. It's a pretty squishy lineup.
Boy.
He's doing it.
Blind pick into the top lane, too. That definitely takes some balls. We'll see what Griffin want to do as Sword. Khan told him to clean his neck one time. He gets the solo kill with Cho'Gath versus a Gnar in the first game. Now he's kind of taunting him once again, saying, give me your best shot. And it looks like he might be just going for the Gnar again.
Losing matchup for the Gnar, but it's something safe, and this is one you feel really good about if you are Khan. Khan undefeated on the Jace in 2018. He's 11-0 on the pick. Legendary top laner was able to, let's say, have a free win against the top lane Karma from not ADD, in place of ADD, Maha, in the top lane a couple of days ago. That's going to be a lot of power on the top side that Tarzan will try to diffuse. See how Kingzone's going to be able to open up this game. Very different style of draft. 2 people, in fact 3 members, are going to be diving in. The Nocturne, the Swain, and the Alistar. The Jace and the Vel'Koz pretty strong in the Siege and also in the split push for the Jace. Whereas for Griffin, they first rounded Orianna, so you knew that team fights and scaling were what they were all about.
Love the Ezreal pick again. I mean, you see the first 3 things that you were going up against, the Nocturne, Swain, Alistar. Looked really good against that in game number 1. The addition of Jace and Vel'Koz can get a little bit, dicey in some of these team fights. If he already uses his Arcane Shift and you got a Jace on top of you, you're not going to be having a fun time. If you get knocked up or hit by anything from the Vel'Koz, you could just be dead or knocked out of the fight. So Viper needs to have another star performance on the Ezreal.
Not that much backline threat from Griffin unless Sword gets in there, so theoretically it could be a big game for the BDD Vel'Koz. Kuro played really well until he made that big mistake on the Vel'Koz last time out. I'm just so excited about seeing the Jace here. It's not against MVP with a sub. This is against Griffin. Could be a big game for him, but Peanut not going to be that much of help before level 6.
Well, guys, the game is ready. The countdown has started for game number 2. Let's jump into it now. Kingzone versus Griffin. Cheerleader was getting into that one, really hoping for Kingzone to come back from the grave of game 1.
I think everyone on stream, and you and I could hear it, sounded like desperation, Valdez, and Kingzone Dragon X do not want to go 0-4 against Griffin in the regular season. Good start, I thought, to the previous game, but mid-game onwards was poor, just like it was in their Kindred game a few series ago, where they had a huge lead at 15 minutes, and then mid to late game couldn't get a Baron and fell away. The Observer showing us 5 stopwatches on the side of Kingzone. Some flashy plays could potentially be coming after 8 minutes.
It's just really strong nowadays. The stopwatch is the the quintuple inspiration secondary here.
They also have 3 Scorch, which is what you do if you're Jace. You say, we're going to win this game, and we're going to win it as early as possible. They have no interest in 4-item fights against the Orianna. The runes there for Jace, if you want to dominate lane, even Absolute Focus, just to have that extra AD. He knows he wins trades super hard against the Gnar.
I love this zoom in here on the mid lane matchup. Vel'Koz. It's all about the geometry for him. Can really see the mechanics that do go into this highest level mid lane play.
As the levels come through, Vel'Koz should have a lot of options against Orianna. The old matchup that Vel'Koz was picked into was the Azir. Crown, of course, was a big person and a big proponent in playing that lane. The ability to harass down some of these medium to long range mages. So far, though, Chovy has been winning the trades pretty significantly, as we've seen.
Lehends hitting level 2 this time first, but is going to sail right through the goal posts there of the Swain Alistar bot lane that we see repeated here from Kingzone.
Peanut, when it comes to jungle pathing, went for a very fast topside scuttle because he's got Jace there, and anything to set up the Jace in order to push could be big. One thing we're not seeing from Kingzone that was pretty commonplace in their Jace games, especially in the Longzhu days, as that's a nice hit on the Tectonic Disruption, is no vertical jungler. We would often see Cuz and Peanut roll through, try to get as much vision topside as possible, take the top red buff, which is the red buff from Griffin, the blue buff on the side of Kingzone, and just allow the Jace to overextend. This is just a scuttle, so definitely not as severe in terms of that topside control.
Meanwhile, Tarzan just hanging around, getting all the camps that he possibly can, just farming up as fast as he can on the Trundle.
He went 2 points command attack. You often see E skilled at level 1 or level 2, but not taking it till level 4 is a nice little alpha move there from the very young mid laner here from Griffin.
I mean, he's got the harass that is a lot easier to hit. It's a lot more dependable, right? Compared to the Vel'Koz, you gotta get out your tools, right? Your geometry tools, trying to see if you can get the angles on, whereas the Orianna just throws her ball at you.
And it was Chovy who dominated this matchup. He was the one everyone was talking about the first time Kingzone played Griffin, because he won both sides of the Zoe versus Aurelia matchup. Remember, Zoe's been permabanned by Kingzone so far this series on blue and red side. He represents the next generation. BDD, of course, debuting in 2016, Chovy debuting in 2018. BD still seen as a new star by some, of course, and if you look at the passage of time, certainly not in the fake era or anything like that, but Chovy is the new, Chovy is the 2018. And so far his mechanical play against BDD has been very impressive over 4 games.
See Tarzan hanging around the top side a lot. It looks like not looking for a gank on Takan. They're not trying to do that, but just trying to keep Sword safe up at the top side, just in case the Nocturne is going to swing by for a gank.
It's also a play to play into what we saw from Kingzone against MVP, because if you remember, that was Kingzone with the coverage and then getting 2 kills on the Jace and game basically being over in game number 2. So it's a counter gank kind of roam coming through there. A proactive gank has so much ability to be turned around. If you make a proactive gank and the Nocturne is there, you can get double killed and end the laning phase. So Tarzan understands that just being in position is all he needs to do.
Well, this is what happens when Scuttle Crabs give you a lot of stuff. As Gorilla is going on in, gets Bone Skewered. Tarzan is going to stop the Fear Lease from coming in. Peanut taking a lot of damage, forces the flash out of Gorilla. Now Prey in a bad spot. The Ignite taken down, and first blood goes to Lehends in the bottom side with that Ignite. And all just for this Scuttle Crab. BDD was there later. Chovy got the push, and Griffin was able to 4v3 them.
Kingzone blinks first again, and it get taken down. Valdez, nice punishment onto Prey, who can teleport back to lane. Doesn't take a lot of punishment, but the gold going to the side of the Pyke is not ideal, to put it lightly. Chovy's had the control over this lane pretty consistently, as we've watched, as the locked camera has basically been happening in the mid lane. Chovy pulls away. Griffin take a kill. No harm, no foul.
Just unfortunate timing. Saw the 2 junglers really trying to get in there. I'll hold that thought as double ultimate comes in. Chovy forced to burn his heal just to get away from the laser. And yeah, looks like BDD is going to win that trade in the end.
And I watched the replay of how this play happened. Kingzone had pushed first, so when it comes to those mechanics, you feel pretty good about them. Gorilla doesn't get any value out of his Headbutt Pulverizer Engage combo, and the Bone Skewer puts him in an awkward spot. Viper's just around the bot side poking the entire time.
Pillar
is flash on. The pillar, like you say, is great. There's no way for the Nocturne to respond. They just end up outnumbering, kind of to the surprise of Prey and Gorilla.
Yeah, Chovy did a really good job of zoning out both Peanut and BDD on the top side. And just a little bit too far forward was Prey and Gorilla. They got trundled hardcore. It always feels really good when you get that pillar down in the perfect spot. And well, Tarzan, the 7-0 trundle here in summer, is going to be really good at trundle pillars.
I feel like people don't really know much about Tarzan. Of course, our global fans like to meme about him being Tarzaned, and there's Viper on the team as well, so the memes are real when it comes to some of the names on the side of Griffin. But when I did post that question about, okay, SKT fans, who do you want to see in the jungle? Tarzan was second name behind Score in terms of the dream choice. Very good at pathing, very good at understanding how to split the map. And he's always in the right spot for the counter gank. So far he's had a lot to celebrate as a player. Counter ganking at the moment once again. Remember, he's here for counter gank. He's not trying to get into the first most brush and set up a gank. No. He's only interested in being there to counter gank, because if he gets counter ganked, he knows they lose the 2v2, and thus the top laning phase may end for the entire game.
It'll be a lot easier if the Paranoia comes in, Nocturne hops on, and runs straight into a Trundle, who could then just ult him and try to win the trade. He knew that Peanut was level 6. He was really waiting to set it up. But so far, no ganks to the top side from Peanut. He's just been farming his heart out outside of the fight that happened over that Scuttle Crab in the bottom side. And so far, no other action outside of that one kill down there in that river.
To me, Peanut can play through mid this game. Definitely has a target on Chovy. If his flash is down, he's pretty easy to all in, as we saw from BDD, that from level 1 ult, you do quite a lot of damage with just the straight-up ultimate. On the bot side, Gorilla gonna get skewered, but be just fine.
I love the emphasis you put on that word.
It's a cool word.
You make it sound very gross.
Vicious? I'm going for vicious.
Skewer.
I feel like there's some great wordplay in League of Legends, and also some like skill names that kind of suck. Tectonic Disruption, for example.
It's nice.
I think it's a pretty crappy name, to be honest.
I don't know. I like it.
You can't shout about it in a team fight. It's just too words.
It's too long. Yeah.
Slicing Maelstrom definitely is very indicative of what's happening. A great name. I think being skewered is a great one for the Bone Skewer, so I'm a fan of that one as well.
How about the Last Breath?
That's fantastic.
That's nice. It definitely baits in all the Yasuo players. All the 13-year-olds in my game, they're like, which champion is the coolest? I'm going to pick the guy that says Last Breath.
And as I told you last time, they always have Project Yasuo.
Yeah, they do. Every single time. Played against the Smurf Yasuo in my game. We beat him. Only my mid lane lost like 0-5. But we still won. In this game, we already had our chance at the Yasuo, and we quickly put that in the trash. As, we weren't happy about that one. BDD wasn't able to make that work. We'll see if his Vel'Koz can do a little bit more work.
Operation Help Out Sword wherever possible. Once again enacted by Tarzan. He'll walk to lane, see what's happening, and then pull back if necessary. Nice trade by Sword, who's suspicious about what's going on the top side.
Yeah, tons of pings on the Tarzan. They know exactly which bush he's in, even. Trying to come in here with the Bone Skewer. He does land it. There's the Shockwave. Gonna look to force the flash out of BDD, and there it is. But Lehens comes in and gets the stopwatch too. But just as easy as you'd like. The stopwatch, not very good against Orianna. They pick up the kill and the Paranoia from Peanut.
Very nicely played by the side of Griffin. Good roam timing from Lehens on this Pyke. The stasis there will stop the instant kill, but of course, the QW being on such a short cooldown, Chovy would pick up the kill eventually. Very important for the mid lane here. Going to be much more presence for the Orianna than maybe we first thought. The Merc treads first, seeming like an inspired purchase after all.
I mean, it's definitely going to be hard for Peanut to get those kills now. No summoners on BDD, and Chovy still with them. And look at this, looking for a play on the top side on Nakan. Who's the bully now? 2-on-1. He does have a stopwatch, but look at how tanky Tarzan is. He really doesn't care about this turret at all. Is going to live in the end, but here comes Peanut. The pillar is going to be there, and Sword is going to be the bodyguard on top of him. Is up 2 levels, and Peanut's out of mana, so they get the kill, and they get out of there alive.
First time Tarzan actually looks for an aggressive play after coming top 3 times. On the 4th time, Sword's in Mega Gnar. They see the Jace, they kill the Jace. Stopwatch used to open up time. And I understand Lehens' roam. Was he spotted here? No, they know the exact vision range. You know, if you're BDD, you feel pretty hard done by because you have almost complete information. Not enough.
Double control ward, right?
Dies through the double control ward. Chovy able to move the ball, get the kill. Last bit of mana there, but no problems. Very well played by Griffin, and now we're back mid.
Oh boy, here we go again. This time no summoners, no stopwatch. A couple of autos would have done it, but Chovy a little bit too aggressive that time around. BDD will survive.
Griffin have been finding some really great angles here, and this time Gorilla's on the back foot. But finally, he looks for an aggressive play. That's just Ezreal versus Alistar things happening. They pull away, and don't really feel like Kingzone have gotten the purchase from first stealing away the Swain, now first picking the Swain 2 games in a row. Could still be made to look silly, but passivity in bot side when Jhin was available and could have been flexed into this Ezreal lane is kind of noted. We already know they've gone triple Scorch as well. They're building for the early game, but the early game's going the way of Griffin.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right about that bot lane, right? Swain was picked first, Alistar third, and then Ezreal made it past the second phase of banning, and they just first pick it on the red side. They're like, okay, thank you very much. We already won with this pick, and Viper popped off and even got the MVP. So if you want to give it to us again, and we'll just take the Pyke for Lehends, he's pretty good on that pick too, we'll be just fine in the bottom lane.
You think of summer 2018 and you say, okay, what picks did Griffin show us were really strong? Nocturne, Shen as a duo, for example. At the start of the season, that was a Griffin pick. Griffin have shown a lot of stuff. If you think about Kingzone's season, they've been a step behind kind of the entire season. They've been pretty slow to understand what was good. They've tried to copy things that beat them a couple of times, and KT have done this as well, with Yukal taking notes from Faker on first the Aatrox mid, then the Ryze, but for Kingzone, the mid-Kled, for example, they tried that. It feels like Kingzone have always been behind, and then we get in a scenario like this where they're still showing that Swain priority, and Swain can be good, and Prey has been a good Swain, but altogether, we're not really getting the picture of a team ahead of the meta. If anything, it's a team still desperate to catch up.
Yeah, I mean, Griffin kind of understand it. They picked the Trundle early. It's really good for Tarzan. It's really good into Nocturne. And then Peanut's like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll take the Nocturne. The Nocturne is really good, but maybe in this position, not going to be the best. Still doing all right, but Tarzan has definitely had more presence on the map, even with that very powerful Nocturne ultimate. They're going to be looking for a play now towards the mid lane. They do have Gorilla nearby, but the pings are coming in. Looks like they saw him on this ward, and that's going to be an easy back for Chovy. Look at the trading up on the top side now. Sword's up a level. He's got a lot of armor, and all of a sudden, this Jace blind pick is not working out as well as they'd like.
We've definitely seen Khan fall behind in lane a couple of times in his 12-0 Jace in 2018. But it's usually in service of something good happening elsewhere. If Khan's getting repeatedly ganked, theoretically, they're getting wins elsewhere, but they're not getting them here. They're getting ganked and dying in mid lane. We're seeing Tarzan, who, again, has a Mega Gnar. Look at the timing once more.
Well, no flash and no stopwatch. What are you going to do this time, Khan? It's going to be dying. That's going to be the answer. He goes down again to another dive. Meanwhile, you talked about other map plays. It is 4-on-3 down here on the bottom side, but here comes the TP. Will be canceled out of Sword in favor of just trying to take out this top turret instead.
He didn't use the Gnar ultimate, but the Mega Gnar was timing out as he teleported. So just take the turret, no reason to risk for more. Lehends is around because the Infernal has spawned. Doesn't seem like Griffin going to be really able to contest this.
Not much they can do. Lehends is thinking about a Bone Skewer. And instead, he's going to get a Nocturne. Will be forced to flash away. Again, another Paranoia that does not get significant damage or kills, just the flash this time around.
Seems like teams have just finally gotten confident enough to play against Nocturne. It was actually early in the season that I was speaking to a couple of players in the LCK, and they were saying, well, against the funnel, people are understanding that Nocturne doesn't provide much early, so we're feeling good about it. Here is the Nocturne, as Lehends still poking around.
Wow. Gorilla even ulted here, really scared of the Orianna, and I suppose he should be. The Ludens is completed onto Chovy at level 12 and does a lot of damage.
That was the first indication that maybe the Nocturne priority would go down, but this week and last week was when Nocturne was coming through basically every game, and we saw so many games, that as we casted them, where gank by ult, Nocturne ult, and Shen ult were up. Teams just got better at understanding the timings and disengaging. Champions like Orianna and Marksman came in the meta who just say, let's just be safe and give up a CS every wave, not die to the global kind of wombo, and then just win team fights when Nocturne dives in and dies instantly.
Yeah.
And a pick like Orianna is the ultimate answer to Nocturne, both in the laning phase in terms of how you play the Orianna, and in a team fight just putting down the command protect and laughing at the late game Nocturne's damage.
Yeah. And the marksmen you mentioned, mainly Ezreal and Varus coming back in a big way. Varus can actually really burst you down. If he has support from a team to deal with the Nocturne in his face and he survives the Paranoia, then it's like, well, I guess I just live and do amazing sustained damage in later game team fights.
There's a third pick, Ashe, just to spot out the Nocturne
Yeah.
so that he never even gets an ult off in the early to mid game. And while on a team fight, Ashe obviously does shudder a little bit when the paranoia is pressed. Orianna, Bol is there, Protect is there. The meta has shifted and has shifted away from the Nocturne in Korea over week 5 and 6.
Yeah, it'd be great to look at the stats. I remember that Nocturne was near 100% presence, and he was also something like 20 and 6. Something ridiculous, but I think it's definitely gone the opposite way for poor old Nocturne. He's having a little bit more trouble nowadays.
Meanwhile, the Trundle has been dominating for basically every jungler. Picked into Kindred and winning that matchup. As speaking of being picked into, Sword has gotten a lot of assistance to be in such an even spot. Walks up. This time the Trundle's not there, and Sword will make an escape. No cost to him.
Yeah, and I return to the idea of maybe Kingzone also have a jungler problem. I don't think that it's really, all Peanut's play in this one, right? He's out farming the Trundle. He's at least able to do that, but the Paranoias haven't been there. There really hasn't been a good lane for him to gank. Jace doesn't have a ton of CC for them to lock down the Gnar, who can be slippery. The mid lane lost thanks to a great roam from Lehends, and the bottom lane is Ezreal Pike. Are you really going to be able to kill them under the turret? It's going to be hard. So Peanut still looking for that opening and still trying to help his team out here.
Your turret is destroyed with 0 HP on the turret. Really?
Wait, 2?
Wait, Score plays in our second series.
Oh no!
It's a bad sign! Everyone
It's an
evacuate.
omen.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I feel really comfortable.
This is bad. This is real bad.
Oh.
Especially
Okay,
after
it's gone, it's gone, it's gone. It's
Fly
gone.
called him out
Oh.
and said, please smite like you used to.
That was Fly's last game on KT.
I know.
Well, he actually played in the Worlds qualifier, but it was definitely his last big game on KT. Oh, my.
Well, Griffin, they take it out. They do us all a good service and say, okay, we don't have to look at the 2 anymore. Blue buff being contested here is going to go the way of Griffin, as now they are 3,000 gold ahead. And Kingzone still looking for somewhere on the map that they can really get something done.
I think you can be glass half full and glass half empty about the Kingzone junglers this series. You can be glass half full and say, it's a drafting problem, their Nocturne priority is too high, and Griffin, as one of the best Nocturne teams, knows how to play against. That's glass half full, and you can kind of like wag your finger at someone that says that, but you can't shut it down. There is some validity to that.
Yeah.
But also, Peanut and Cuz are getting interchangeably swapped. That wasn't something that happened in spring. When we had so much Cuz at MSI, everyone was like, why not sub in Cuz when Peanut has a bad game? I was like, because they never played him in spring season. He played like 4 games in the entire 18 best of 3s because Peanut was on such a great run of form. Now we are getting to that spot where there's not much to pick between the two, and there seems to be issues that haven't been revealed about why Peanut hasn't been able to gel as much in the summer season. Doesn't take any level of insight to know that he just hasn't been fitting. There's been a lot of desyncs that were certainly perfect sync in the spring season. So there's probably truth to both sides of the coin, but the Nocturne is the one that's the easiest to just throw to one side. The bigger Peanut issues will be more revealed in the best of 5s. I still think Kingzone makes top 5, but they're definitely going to have to fight and scrap their way to the final rather than just sit there like they usually do.
Yeah, it's not going to be a very easy season. So far hasn't really been, especially against this team. They lost the last time around to Griffin 0-2, and this time it's kind of looking like that could happen again, as Griffin do have the handle on this game. Now, it's not a massive lead, but it is a very healthy lead, especially for how early on in the game we are here, 21 minutes. At least Kingzone are looking to secure their second Drake in a row, and it's a couple of very good ones. The Mountain and the Infernal are going to be very important for their team.
Sword already in Mega Gnar, so if he's teleporting, it has to be soon. Seems like they're giving this one up.
Just going to let this one go. Gorilla gets kind of close. Looks like Griffin was thinking about engaging. Maybe they'll just take the fast track into the mid lane because Kingzone cannot get there. Maybe try to do a little bit of damage to the inner turrets and open up a play towards Baron. You can already see the top tier 2 turret taking damage. And look at the positioning from Tarzan, rather, looking to get on in there takes a lot of damage. Doesn't end up working out for him, but interesting idea, getting really aggressive in the jungle.
Something you have to step back and take a pause over is Griffin are the ones who are enacting the full court press, getting a defensive teleport out of Khan onto his inner turret. The Jace comp is the one that's being pushed in. The Triple Scorch comp is the one that's being pushed in. Most of Kingzone's wins with Jace, he wasn't actually getting double and triple kills and pulling off amazing plays. He actually had, you know, pretty low KDAs in a lot of the wins. It's because he would push, and around the map, good things would happen. Right now, around the map, they're losing in basically every quadrant other than the Drake takes, which have gone to Kingzone twice. And if Jace isn't able to 1v1 the Gnar, which he should be based on the matchup, item timings, etc., if he doesn't have the safety to push around, then we might, for once, not have a KR Jace. It might actually be the sort of Jace that loses every time, because we know that Jace from behind is a struggle.
Definitely is. I mean, you look at this graph, and if you had no idea what kind of game it is, maybe you would assume that he's 4-0, but that's absolutely not the case. He does a lot of poke damage. His trades are phenomenal for the Jace, but it's just not effective, because the Gnar is able to survive, build up that armor, and win the lane in the end with the help of his Trundle.
Seeing Griffin just continue to wail around. Tarzan's proximity to the top side of the map, previously for the Gnar versus Jace matchup, and now just around Baron control, has been basically the dominant part. If we had the Heat map, the Heat would certainly be applied to that top side of Kingzone. Actually, a very interesting lane assignment now of Gnar versus Swain in the bot side, because Khan doesn't have his teleport.
Griffin as a whole just trying to take out all this inner vision on the blue side. And they've been pretty good about that. You think about running into the team of Griffin, it's very scary, right? There's a lot of CC, there's the pillar there, there's the Shockwave, Orianna. The burst damage from Shockwave, True Shot Barrage can nearly one-shot anybody if you lock them down, which is something they can do. So they're threatening that at least right now, Griffin.
And if you have map control as Orianna, Orianna gets those 4 items earlier, free farms, and then you kind of struggle to see how Griffin loses a true 5v5. They have a very solid 5v5 comp, very square comp, if you know what I mean, where it's very clear where the positioning will be. And Kingzone, unless they can find a way to recreate, again, the Realm Warp play from Yukal that beat a comp like this, very tricky to see how they really put pressure on Griffin. There's a 60 CS lead, I guess 50 CS now lead for the Orianna in mid lane. Griffin is scaling up, the Jace comp is behind. It's already worrying times for Kingzone unless they can pull off the sort of assertive Baron play that allowed Griffin to propel forward game number 1.
Try to go for it here. They have a Mountain Drake and an Infernal, and Jace. The Nocturne are going to be pretty fast at doing that, even if the Swain is kind of lacking here compared to a Marksman. But he's just been sitting here eating the waves. He's down 2 levels against the Gnar, just not letting the turret go down. He's been doing his job. And all of a sudden, they find a couple of members of Kingzone here in the bush. You notice that Kingzone has actually been able to get a nice amount of vision and avoid the control ward that is in the river right now. So Griffin, they have a bit of cleanup in the top side of the river.
To me, the only way Kingzone win this game is if they get Baron. I think if they get Baron, everything falls into place. You still have a 250 CS Jace, split pushing with Baron. Swain's lack of siege. Again, Baron makes up for that, and Vel'Koz good in a siege. With Baron, you understand how Kingzone get a big lead, but getting the Baron looks so hard. That's why Tarzan just keeps pathing topside, putting down control wards, and making sure that Kingzone doesn't have a vision lead around the Baron. That means they're never going to get the objective, and by the time they get rushed and say, okay, we have to fight now, Orianna could have 4 items. She's at 2.5 already. It's not going to be a high AP build, but a lot of survivability. And again, Griffin controlling this Baron buff area, to me, that's just the tonic they need to get exactly the fight and close the game at their speed.
Yeah, they're not trying to go for any fights. It might look a little bit boring, you know, if you're a fan here of Griffin, you're saying, you know, why don't they go for the fight? They're ahead. They don't want to fight. They're just sitting here and they're saying, hey, Orianna, farm up. We'll see if we can get any picks. Like I mentioned before, they have a nice amount of pick. And they're looking for Bray now. He's in so much trouble. He is able to flash away, though, and now the knockup trying to come on in here. Peanut going in onto Tarzan is not going to be effective. In the end, though, they do get the flash out of the swing.
They get the teleport out of the Jace as well, so the tools are invested the side of Kingzone. All you get is flash from Tarzan, no more. Griffin will continue to push up this vision, look for the picks, and praise backline access that he couldn't get in game number 1, looking tricky with no flash now in game number 2.
They're going to have to wait just a bit before they can get into that. The TP comes in, Prey is not there, and it looks like the Gnar is finally going to get that bottom turret.
Sword held on to his teleport the entire time, could have used it at any moment, decides not to because knows that you can't fully engage, because at some point Kingzone are melee champions walking into the ball and they realize, okay, maybe we have to give up now. Jovi is level 16. Tarzan actually going to take the first Drake for Griffin. This is going to be the Infernal. No TP on the Jace means that lane assignment doesn't allow them to contest for the Infernal. So no big action happens, but Griffin got a little big buff here in terms of the Infernal.
It's going to be really nice. Next one will be the Cloud Drake, which, you know, will be nice. Would have preferred the Infernal, but not half bad. Like the Stone Plate pickup from Tarzan. He knows he's going to be the one big frontliner. If Sword isn't there, he needs to survive to do that zoning and put enough pillars down.
Let's be real. His job is to walk into a brush, maybe be face-checking the brush, not die, put down a pillar, and set up an Orianna ult. There's really nothing else he has to do. So he just needs to live for as long as possible, and the Stone Plate represents more effective health in a team fight. He builds a bit of CDR. He really is only a tool for Griffin to use, but his early game was so strong in terms of pathing. The fact that the 2 times he showed himself to the Jace is when they got the 2 kills, and yet he was there for counter gank every time. Kingzone can't even know that, is really all he had to do. And then at some point, you're just a Trundle, and you just do your job.
You ult something, then you just troll around a little bit and try to put down a good pillar. And yeah, I mean, he already did his job, essentially. He's living on his social security, just sitting back, enjoying retirement. And he definitely deserves it. You guys can see the gold lead here for Griffin, over 5,000 gold now. The Merlinomicon finished for our resident Orianna. The Archangel staff is building up for the Ezreal too. This Griffin team is about to get even scarier.
I think Sword is the only person, actually I think maybe all 10 players have had a stopwatch this game. Some of them have bought them, but there is a Guardian Angel and 4 stopwatches on the side of Griffin, and Kingzone started with 5. So yeah, turns out perfect timing is a pretty cool rune.
It's a good rune, it's a good item. We see it a lot here in competitive play where, you know, 600 gold is not really a fantastic number to look at. So they're like, well, I'm going to build into some kind of item that needs this stopwatch, and it's really effective in mid-game team fights. So might as well just pick that up instead of, say, Ruby Crystal, and you have 200 gold left, something like that. So it's very, very common, and it's amazing, that stopwatch.
And right now, because of the pace of the game we were talking about, where it's been coverage jungling from Tarzan, there's 90 lane CS to the advantage of Griffin. The only thing that's sparing Kingzone is that Peanut is up in jungle farm, but there's just been 90 creeps that died to turrets that Kingzone couldn't get access to because their map control with a Jace who was behind, and a Nocturne who hasn't been able to find any value out of the paranoia, has just allowed Griffin to hard farm their way to this point. We always talk about Orianna close to 4 items, and well, we're just starting the Baron apparently for Griffin.
There are pings though, they know about this. They saw them go over somehow, or at least they do have the suspicion. Here comes Gorilla, but all of a sudden a pillar to the face, and now Gorilla is going to be in a weird spot. Did have to use his ultimate, is looking for the engage now, is going to mess up the combo. Wasn't sure if he wanted to stick around there any longer anyway, as he is on his way out. Sword was diving bottom turret at the same time.
3 levels up on Prey. This is the lane assignment Kingzone have to use because Khan still doesn't have his teleport. He's tried to get someone to face check. It's the Alistar. They get a bit out of him, not the flash, crucially. But they'll take it. Tarzan already comically tanky, as we know. We just keep seeing Kingzone try things, unable to pull them off, and we're waiting for Griffin to make their first actual true I guess commitment is the word we want to use to this game, because they've been non-committal, just taking the farm on the Gnar and the Orianna and waiting for the perfect spot.
Yeah. They're just waiting. You know, Kingzone in their own right aren't really making any big mistakes, but that does mean because of the game plan of Griffin that the game just goes on. Nobody dies, no objectives get taken really. And we're going to be at a point here where Seraphs is going to be completed for Viper. Orianna is looking at probably the Death Cap as her 4th item, almost definitely. And it's going to be extremely scary. You'll notice BDD, after getting the Fiendish Codex, actually went straight into damage. So no kind of, you know, Zhonya's being picked up, no Banshee Veil or anything like that. He just wants that pure damage output from behind.
Look, he would love a stopwatch, but of course the stopwatch is broken already. He'd love a stopwatch because he can't afford to spend 3,000 plus gold on stasis. He needs to get stasis and damage, because this game is not going to be, oh, I have Zhonya so I can stasis every fight. It's going to be one fight and over. This game is going to be decided in a single fight almost 100%, and he knows that because nothing has happened in terms of champion damage for the better part of 15 minutes. So he has to go damage. Griffin have been able to go a bit of both. Banshee Veil complete onto Chovy, for example. They're waiting for that perfect moment. I know we're close to it, but I'm not sure exactly when it will come.
Kingzone on the blue side have a much easier way of getting in, checking the Baron. They can put their 3 control wards in this triangle, but the pillar is really fantastic. Gorilla this time around, he does have his ultimate, but the Bone Spear comes in and double flash away from the Shockwave. That was the first big one we've seen in a team fight outside of the ganks in the mid lane. Once again, nobody in the bottom side at the same time, so Sword just picks up a turret.
And that's what we call value, not the turret necessarily even. That's, of course, the bonus, but 2 flashes on the face checkers is pretty damn good for an Orianna Shockwave. That's going to be up in 20 seconds.
Yeah, it gets really short at this point. You'll have your, you know, about 50, 45-second cooldown, and now they're thinking about this Baron. They need to put down the ward, though, as that is a very common one for Gorilla.
And this is what you do. You go straight to the Baron, both face checkers have flash, and you just keep making this play, and guess what? The next Shockwave going to hit 2+ as well.
Yeah, and what are they going to do now? I mean, they know that the Baron has started. Lehends is on guard duty here, and Peanut is just going to back off. There's no vision. He can't paranoia in. He doesn't have his flash either, so he can't face check. Gorilla tries to come over here, but it's too late. Nocturne ultimate is used, and for what reason, really? They're not able to stop it. He can't get in, and the Baron will go to Griffin.
A combination of Griffin playing the macro perfectly and Kingzone's recent struggles is, if you told me they were playing without comms, without headsets, I'd probably believe you. The ultimate's used far too late there. They had to know they got the global marker as the ultimate was being pressed. Being dictated to is Kingzone Dragon X, and it's going to be an inner turret easily picked up by Griffin.
Griffin looking really smooth, and you mentioned it in game number 1, but Kingzone has not taken advantage of some of the weaknesses of Griffin, right? We talked about their early game. We talked about, you know, trying to get ahead, and well, Kingzone weren't able to do that. Griffin has just waited for 30, 35 minutes in both game number 1 and game number 2, and they got away with it, and they had comps that really like it, and here they are, winning a second game.
If you turn the nameplates off, I don't think, you turn the nameplates off and show this to someone in spring season, no one says Kingzone Dragon X when they're looking at the team on the blue side here. They kind of remind me of spring KSV, which didn't have a lot of ideas about how to win, just kind of lost games in a pretty non-interactive fashion.
Just like this, right?
They subbed in their junglers, Ambition and Haru. They both looked the same. There wasn't really any way to separate them. This does feel a lot like a team out of sync, and we never really got the TLDR of why KSV started spring season so well, then fell away, but feels like that's what we're getting from Kingzone Dragon X here. And there's more clear reasons. The mental toll that going to Rift Rivals after MSI has taken on this team is something that we can never really truly understand. We only get little bits and pieces around. But just so out of sync are Kingzone Dragon X right now. Meanwhile, Griffin, the team that talked about having wordless communication in team fights, talking about team fight before it happens and then not muddying the comms during fights, well, it looks like that Griffin that we've been talked to about.
Super clean, and Kingzone say, yes, we would love a clean house. Let's have a clean game.
Yeah.
Nobody gets hurt. You know, just 4 kills, that's fine, Griffin. You just go ahead and, yeah, you can stay over. You can take the house over, that's fine. We don't really care.
It's an 11,000 gold lead already.
Yeah. That's exactly what's happened. 4 kills in almost 40 minutes. And now Griffin with the Baron. They're looking to push on in. They do have Ezreal, Gnar, and Orianna, and a fantastic amount of push and siege. And we're sitting here with a super fed double carry on their side. The Nocturne still looking for some use in the entire series.
Maybe we're learning about the Orianna priority. It seemed high in game number 1, but I don't think that's necessarily first pick Orianna. It seems that if you see a Swain, Orianna's getting value one way or the other. Fly already said, I saw Kindred, I saw Zoe. I knew that Orianna would be a strong pick. Seems like why not Orianna is going to become an increasing thing we're going to talk about in the draft. As turrets falling low, Griffin don't want to walk up for an engage from Kingzone.
And that kind of thing always does happen, especially with more and more patches. Teams begin to figure out the new meta, and then eventually a couple of picks come in where you're like, oh, that's actually perfect against what's in the meta right now, and it changes everything up. Well, I think we'll definitely see some questions about the priority on some picks, like the Orianna we mentioned, the Nocturne as well. We'll see where everything lands. We've seen Gnar come back in a big way as well to deal with stuff like Mundo. Look at Viper just 1v1ing Peanut. The Hen's trying to go in there and get the kill in the end. Is going to miss, but at least he does get the flash out of BDD. And, well, Griffin, they're just taking what's theirs at this point.
And there's nothing Kingzone can do. They've tried pressing their buttons before. They don't do anything together. And thus, with Griffin always ready to kite back, they're not able to engage, they're outranged, everything goes down. Nice side wave control is going to be a small headache for Griffin, but they have teleport on Viper and Sword. They'll get there eventually. And Griffin, if they end this game 4-0, it won't be a perfect game. There was one turret taken, but for a game that was going to definitely defy the critics one way or the other, I definitely looked at this game and said, if Griffin loses, I think the hype train is derailed. Because they'd be 1-3 in the second round robin, and multiple teams would have been able to recreate what KT did and take them down. This is the Griffin hype train once again coming up, but not necessarily answering what KT did to them. They haven't been dictated to in the early game. They've once again got an easy early game where they haven't had to do much, and then everything fell into place. We know that now about Griffin, but you got to work on your early game and your red buff control if you want to beat Griffin, and Kingzone haven't done that, Valdez. Kingzone are not good enough in the early game to punish Griffin.
No, they're not. They need a good early game themselves, and, well, they were dictated to by Griffin. It's part of the reason why we definitely have discussed this before, you and I, Papa, where Griffin in a best-of-5 against a team that has a lot of time to study them, and maybe a team like KT or even Gen G, who's been a lot more aggressive early on here in the summer. I think against those teams, maybe Griffin just falls apart. Maybe those teams just figure them out in a way and dissect them and are able to destroy them in a best-of-5. But in a best-of-3 series like this, where Kingzone absolutely do not have them figured out, it looks like Griffin are the best team in the world.
I think you have a very good, clean point there, and I hate making predictions around it because we can't know. Like, if you think of Gen G versus Griffin, you think, well, I mean, then Griffin gets the late game because Gen G's pretty slow, even if they're ordered in the early game, and then they just win late game because Griffin are the late game teamfight gods. But Ambition in the lineup, that was also the Gen G, I guess, Samsung Galaxy way in the past. Even though we're pushing into inhibitors, we're not talking about the game very much because right now nothing's really happening. Don't think Kingzone are going to feel strong enough to make an engage, but there's a lot of level 18s. You got to do it eventually. I feel like Gen G, as you say, with the research time, will pull off the strategies they did to deny KT 2 years in a row and just surprise them. Maybe Cuvée has the perfect pick, Sword goes down, and they win from that. But if that doesn't happen, if it is very equal pick spans, we're going to get a 5-match series for sure.
Well, the push is coming in. This is just about what you would expect, right? 14,000 gold ahead now as Griffin. The Swain is looking useless as ever. We talked about priority. That will definitely be another one that could be looked at, as it seems like there are more counter picks than we really originally realized, as he cannot get in range of this team. He has to flash away rather than flashing forward and getting his 5-man ultimate, sucking the life of everybody. And that's going to be the third inhibitor that goes down the TP over towards the Baron. Griffin, they're looking for 2 more objectives and a second win.
Oh boy. I'm just imagining being Kingzone players in this moment, watching 3 inhibitors go down. You got Nocturne ultimate, you got an Alistar with flash up, but there's nothing you can do. You know if you go in, you lose. Speaking of which, the Baron's being taken. You know it's being taken. You know if you go in, you lose. Baron gonna be to the side.
Yeah.
Griffin sword peels away to zone them away. This is what being strangled out of game feels like. This is what Kingzone have done to teams for the better part of 2 seasons. And for once, the shoe is on the other foot, and Kingzone again, that same feeling dealt to them.
Griffin fans should be happy, right? If you were on the Griffin hype train and then you were a little bit dissatisfied for their 2 losses against Afreeca and KT, which those 2 teams, by the way, did dissect Griffin and kind of, take them apart, especially Afreeca, where Griffin was trying some stuff with the funnel. It was kind of weird. And then KT once again take the win. But this win over Kingzone is it's really fantastic for them. It shows that they have a very strong strength. I know that sounds weird to say, but their strength, if they can get the game to go in their favor, they look really unstoppable.
Scariest thing for me is that Kingzone, in this game, drafts a comp that fits into that KT mantle. They got the Jace this time, baby. They went 3 times Scorch, tried to dominate lane, but they never got anything done with the Nocturne jungle priority maybe being off. Maybe that's the reason, but the Nocturne can't make the practice plays. No plays happen, and Griffin outscale them anyway. So they're definitely taking a nod from KT's game plan of early aggression in terms of the pick ban, but the execution, not so much.
Gorilla's trying to go for a flank over here. The pillar's going to be on the door of the base, actually. Tarzan with his stone plate, doesn't care about anything. Trying to get the stun here on a Gorilla. Paranoia, look at the back line as Gnar is just going ham. Is going to get the GA and hops out of there. Gorilla's going to go down 2. And Kingzone from so far behind. The Ray comes in, but Lens is there to stun him down 2. And that's just going to be it. 5 Mans on 1 as 4 kills come through. The double kill for Chovy's Orianna. And the result we all expected comes through eventually. 2-0 for Griffin tonight over Kingzone.
Griffin end the regular season 4-0 against Kingzone and Valdez. It was not close in any of those 4 games. Kingzone Dragon X not good enough to execute on the Jace draft this time. 12-1 now on 2018 is the Jace pick for Khan. Griffin very controlled, basically a perfect game. 1 turret is all that separated them from a perfect game. And at every point it was ordered. At every point they made the right decision. And they even removed decisions from Kingzone. There was nothing they could do for the better part of the last 20 minutes. And while some people will say boring, I'm impressed by just how robust Griffin's game plan was. This man on your screen, Tarzan, was a monster in the early game and a fairly bloodless monster. The way that he ensured there was no chance Gnar could lose the lane at any point. He was there for the 2 turret dive kills they picked up and was there to counter gank 3 times before any action happened. He was a man on a mission. That mission was, my Gnar is not going to get beaten by Khan's Jace.
Yeah, it raises questions about who is going to be the MVP from Game 2. I think Tarzan is definitely the guy you would have to look towards, right? Chovy's Orianna, it was flashy, just like Ezreal in the first game. Viper picks up that one, but this guy is an outstanding jungler. Sometimes it's hard to see. 8 games of Trundle, it's not the most fun champion, not the most flashy one, but he's still undefeated, 8-0 now, and he gets the job done. That's all you can say about this guy.
And at some point you have to stop picking Sejuani and Zac into it, because the Kindred certainly hasn't worked. He's been able to outpath every Kindred. The Nidalee pick was available, but of course, why not go Kindred if you're going to go for the Nidalee? Clean game from the side of Griffin. A bloodless game, no deaths come in. Prey made the single big mistake in the early game. And then from there, BDD not using his flash at any point here. Thought he would live, but by the time he uses it, would go down one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, when you have heal, flash, and stopwatch, you feel like you're unkillable, but it is the Orianna, and this is the first of the dives onto Khan. The Trundle just tanky enough to ignore the damage from Jace. He does it again a second time around when Khan has even less health and Tarzan is even more tanky and makes it look even easier.
You can learn so much about competitive jungling by watching Tarzan, specifically on the Trundle. Trundle is all about where you are on the map. He doesn't have a big CC ability. His pillar can be situationally strong, but he's there in every situation. The situation when he's on the screen is good things are going to happen from my team. That team is Griffin. Very easy closeout. Obviously a big gap in timestamps here because nothing happens in terms of action between the two replays. But Griffin win 2-0, and that means they are the first team to move to 10 match wins. Remember, no team in the LCK has failed to make playoffs at 11 match wins. 10 usually gets you there, 11 is guaranteed. One more match win as their schedule gets easier, they will reach 11.
Yeah, it definitely does feel like Griffin is going to be making playoffs at this rate. They'd have to have a just awful kind of second round here after this win tonight. And really the question is, can they overcome some of the other teams which seem to have their number, right? KT has done it twice. Afrika has done it once. Gen.G certainly seemed like a really smart team that can do it as well. That's really the question for me. I want to see them actually be able to pull it off against Gen.G a second time. And if they can do that, then, well, Griffin could be ending up in this season in the first place spot and already into finals.
Where will Kingzone Dragon X, our two-time back-to-back champions, end this season? Is increasingly becoming 5th, 4th, 6th when it comes to those spots because top 3 seems impossible. Tarzan is your well-deserving MVP. Wonderful performance from him. Clearly a smart jungler. Clearly a lot of teams could learn from him. Effective ganks are 2. His kill participation is 75%. But what he did to that top lane is the sort of thing that statistics can't show.
Yep, 9% damage percentage isn't going to show that, of course. I'm going to hand it over to Jisun. We will hear from these two members.
Thank you very much. This is Jisun with your interview translations, and today we're joined by Viper and Tarzan from Griffin. So today's match could have been a little bit of a pressure for you guys. So how do you guys feel right now? Today was a must-win series for us. Yeah, so we was a little bit nervous before games, but I knew that we would able to attain the good result that if we play as we normally do in the practice. So we were feeling a little bit confident also. If we just stick to our own plays, I knew that we were gonna win. Yeah, if we just don't make mistakes, I knew that we were gonna win against Kingzone. So are you satisfied with your play today? Well, in the first game, I actually died out once because I was a little bit hyped near the dragon. So that was my only mistake in the first game.
그렇습니다. 정말 1, 2세트에서 모두 또 활약을 해주셨고 바이퍼 선수도 뒤쪽에서 그 이즈리얼로 계속해서
Viper, you put a lot of damage on Ezreal today.
사실 근데 바이퍼 선수가 B1딜
However, I thought you prefer non-ADC champs, but today you played only Ezreal.
네, 오늘 이즈리얼을 꺼내게 된
What was the
이유가
reason for
있을까요?
that?
우선 이즈리얼이 되게 성장만 잘할 수 있으면
Well,
제 역할을 해줄 수 있는 원딜 중 하나라서
Ezreal is a really good ADC champion if you just get fed well.
팀도 아마 이즈리얼을
And I was also feeling like Kingzone would be also wanting to play Ezreal, so it would be safer if we play Ezreal on our side.
그래서 한번 해봤어요.
근데 2세트에서 또 한 번 꺼내신 걸 보니까
네네.
1세트에서
So you also played it in second set. So did you feel like you were satisfied with your own play?
할만한
Yeah, and plus Ezreal is a really good champion against Swain in bot lane.
이전 인터뷰에서 두 선수 알고 계셨나 모르겠어요. 그냥
And your head coach CV Max said every single match in LCK is so exciting, and he's got so many things to learn from every single match. So as a pro player, what about you? Are you guys enjoying the match, or the fact that you guys have to remain the first place as some kind of pressure to you guys?
1위를 지키고 싶다는 생각이 되게 많이 들어요.
Yeah, I really want to remain this first place.
그러면 감독님이 말씀하신 것처럼 마냥 즐기면서 재밌게
So are you guys
하시는
enjoying the games, or is it kind of a pressure for you guys?
연습은 일단은 네, 집중해서
Well, we're just trying our best during the practice games.
그래도 연습할 때는 연습하고 그 평소에 지낼 때는
But except for the practices or the matches, yeah, I think we are enjoying this life as an LCK player.
자, 이렇게 이제 1, 2세트에서 정말 멋진 장면을 보여주신 두 선수와 함께하기 때문에 또 민철에서
So we have
그 장면도 봐야 되잖아요.
highlights to go through, right?
일단 1세트 때
So in the game one,
모르가나 블랙쉴드 빠졌을 때를 노려가지고
when Morgana's Black Shield was down, they took down Morgana.
그 원래는 주도권을 가지고 이즈리얼 모르가나가 상대방을 압박하는
Well,
이런 구도를
I
원했을
thought that
것 같은데
Ezreal and Morgana should have laning priority, but it was a mistake, right?
언제든 죽을 수 있을 것 같아서
네.
Well, I actually felt like we were really close to dying during the laning phase, but I just didn't tell him. And then he just died when he got no shield.
거리를 주면 안 되는데
We shouldn't just, well, he shouldn't have let Alistar to put his combo down on her, but it was his mistakes. But I wasn't really that much worried. I just concentrated on my own play.
뭐 관련이 없다라는 마인드로 좀 넘기신 것 같아요.
그런데 좀
네.
관련이 있더라고요.
관련이 있어요.
그것
네.
때문에 좀
But because of that,
힘들어진 것 같기도
the game went a little bit more
그래도
difficult.
저는 그 와중에 사실 그렇게 경기가 좀 넘어가면 상대방 미드 정글이 바텀 쪽을 압박하면서
So yeah,
이즈리얼
in the early
모르가나가 좀
games,
폭파당하는 이런 장면이
I think
나올 수
Kingzone
있는데
had a little bit more
그
leading
중간에
factors,
탈리아로
but
또 타잔 선수가
Tarzan, you did so much work on Talia.
그 득점 자체를 못하게 원천 봉쇄를 하는 장면이 나왔습니다. 저는 거기서 좀 감명을
So there was a
받았는데
most impressive play on the first set.
발빠르게 움직이고 자신 팀의 실점이 될 만한 곳에 미리 배치.
So you were always one step earlier in every single team fights or skirmishes. So what's the trick for that?
네, 이렇게 막 말씀 좀
Do you just have a good sense?
일단 롤을 랭겜에서 쌓은 데이터랑
Well,
스크림에서 쌓은
this is all
데이터로
based on all the plays from solo queues and during the practice games. So I have this feeling like where the opponent will be.
그리고 그러면 이어서
Moving on.
상대방을 한번 몰아내고 또 고릴라 선수의 알리스타를 잡아내는
You guys took down Alistar in the Drake. So let's check out the clips first.
앞에서의 알리스타를 잡아내는 모습. 여기서 네 틀어주세요.
움직여라.
너무나 멋진
It's not
플레이여서
moving.
잠깐 지금 네
잠깐
컴퓨터도
멈췄어.
네.
볼까요? 네.
네
다시요. 우리 타잔
Once more?
선수 보라고. 네. 다시 한번 볼게요.
자 이런 식으로 데미지를 거의 풀딜을
So you
넣으면서
have put a lot of damage.
계속 쫓아가면서 득점을 만드는
And the rest of the Griffin players were able to take him down.
어떻게 이런 판단을 할 수 있었는지 일단 타잔
So whose decision was that?
운 좋게 용안으로 들어오는 알리스타가 시야에 보여.
We were lucky to see him in our vision.
와드 용 뒤 벽에 와드 박으러 오겠다 생각하고.
So we thought that he was gonna come to place ward near the Drake. So we were just waiting for him.
빠르게 움직여가지고 좀 네, 키를 캐치해내는 이런 모습이 있었는데 이때 이러면 좀 아 나 좀 풀렸다 이런 생각하셨나요? 좀 많이 안 좋았어요.
So what did you feel when you picked up that kill?
모르가나가 죽고 시작하는 바람에
Yeah, after my support died at first, we had a little bit of a hard time. But yeah, I think I got paid off at that moment.
그리고 이제 제가 다음 장면 또 궁금한 점은 상대방이 바텀 쪽을
네.
노릴 때 이 오히려
And the
탈리아와
next question
함께
is that,
촉박스를
well, the
노려주는
Kingzone was trying to take down Gnar on bot lane, but you guys were trying to focus on Cho'Gath on top lanes.
그때 콜은 좀 어땠나요?
So what kind of call went back and forth at that moment?
그냥 일단 녹턴이 보쪽에 궁 썼다고 생각하고.
We thought that Nocturne has used its ultimate on bot lane, so yeah, we thought like we should try something on top lane.
공에 안 보여가지고 녹턴 공이 끝나는데 갑자기
And
초가스가 있길래.
we actually didn't have vision first, but we saw Cho'Gath, so we just opened the team fight.
그리핀의 특징이 확연히 드러나는 게 계속 이제 뭐랄까 싸움을 좋아하는 것 같아요.
I think all the Griffin players really like to open fights.
굳이 열어서
Very
싸움을
aggressive.
만들어내고 거기서 꼭 키를 가져가겠다는
And
의지가
always
있는
ending up
분이거든요.
picking up kills.
네, 그리고 타잔 선수의 뭐 최고의 CC는 적은 피다라는 걸 증명하듯이 리엔즈 선수와 함께
And
상대방을
all the players were so eager to take you down with very low health, and you guys were able to turn the game around at that moment.
바이퍼 선수와 타잔 선수를 칭찬할 수밖에 없는 것 같고 이때 좀 승기를 예감했나요? 아니면 다른
So,
장면에서
did you guys feel like you were gonna close out the game at that moment?
저 장면이 되게 크게 작용했던
I think,
것 같아요.
yeah, that was the most important play of the second or the first game.
빨리 잡힌 것 같아서 저 때부터 아마
Yeah, the game could have been really difficult for us, but after that, we were able to kind of get the game back in our hands. So we were sure that if we get rid of our mistakes, we were able to win the game.
더 공격적이고 더 적극적으로 약간 교전을 펼치면서
Game 2, you guys tried a little bit more aggressive play.
네, 일단은 저희는 뭐 첫판 영향 안 받고 그냥 다시
Yeah, we just trying not to get affected by the first game, so we just focus solely on our own plays.
궁금해하시는 것들이 이제 뭐 한타에 대한 장면들 워낙 강렬하니까요. 한타를 너무너무 잘하고
And you guys are so good at
이게 다
team
연습이
fights.
되어져서 이제
Is it
나오는
all
거 아니면
practiced, or you guys
굉장히 최소한으로
make really
느끼는데
delicate calls?
그런 건가요? 누군가 한 명이 주도적으로 한타를 좀 주도하는 편인가요?
So what is the main factor for doing team fights so well?
되게 저희는 그냥 유동적으로
I think it differs every time.
따라주고
When someone makes a call, we just want to follow up. And when a different situation occurs, we just want to always make a good cover plays.
그렇습니다. 오늘 1, 2세트에서 두 선수가 보여줬던 거 그렇게 나머지 선수도 너무 잘했기 때문에 앞으로의 또
Griffin, I guess you
모습들이
guys are
기대가
still
되는데
on
요즘
up to
SK
full
보시면
potential.
그 팬분들이 상당히 많아졌다는
And nowadays,
걸 느끼시나요?
Do you guys feel like you guys have a rising number of fans out here?
그게 함성이 되게 커진 게
네, 맞아요.
Yeah, hearing the crowds chanting for us, it's really happy.
더 열심히 해야겠다는 생각도 많이
It
들고요.
네,
makes me
그렇습니다.
feel more motivated to
그러면
come back with better
팬분들께서
performance.
무더운 여름이다 보니까 건강 관리 잘하고 계신지 궁금해하시는 것 같아요. 컨디션 관리 잘하고 계신지.
So, you know, the weather is crazily hot nowadays, so how are you guys taking care of yourself?
그렇습니다.
Yeah, we always stay cool in our own gaming house. We're just only playing games, so yeah, we're all okay.
다음 경기가 운명의 장난처럼 젠지 e스포츠가
And your next opponent will be Genji Esports on Thursday. So is there any last message regarding your upcoming match?
저희 남은 경기들이 되게 다 중요한 경기들이라 한 경기 한 경기 소중하게
Every single match will be so important for us, so
한번 열심히 노력한 만큼
we're gonna do our best to come back with better results. So I'll be looking for continuous support, and I really appreciate all the love and support from my fans.
내일 모레 대회 잘 준비해가지고 좋은
I'm gonna practice for the match on Thursday, and I will show my fans great performance. Thank you. So this will be the end of the interview with Viper and Tarzan from Griffin, and I will pass it back to our casters. Thank you.
Thank you, Ji-sun, for the translation. It was a couple of longer games, 41 minutes and 44 minutes, but it finally did end. Griffin clamped down the win 2-0 over Kingzone.
You told Griffin, hey, could we spawn and have 4 items on Orianna before the action happens? They would have said yes, so while it does toil a little bit, it means that Griffin are now one series clear of Genji, who have no ability to be above them at the end of today. But Genji joining them at 10 matches will be fine by them. We have a great second match tonight. We'll have Genji versus KT, so another battle of the teams around the top. But for our first match, to sign it off, big win for Griffin. Really solid play. The Orianna priority, I think it's going to be a preview. And good news for you guys, because the games are a bit longer. Usually after a 2-0, could be an hour, could be longer. About 25 minutes or so is the break today.
It's not bad, you know. It's just a tiny bit longer than, let's say, a 2-1 victory. So we'll be back here with Genji versus KT. Griffin get the win. I should have made that prediction the first time around today. I did predict them to win again, and I didn't expect it to be a 2-0, though. 2-1 was what I was thinking, but, man, I mean, Kingzone, I think after today, they have a lot to think about in terms of what to do against some of these teams.
A lot to think about, but not a lot of time to do it. They play again in 2 days' time. The 4 teams of today do a bit of musical chairs and play each other again in 2 days, because we have 6 teams playing tomorrow. So no consecutive match days means that we will be seeing some really titanic matches. I believe it's Kingzone Genji. I could be wrong on that. I'm trying to think in my head. No, it'll be Genji Griffin, so it'll have to be Kingzone KT
yeah.
in 2 days' time. So that's definitely not an easy opposition to back up. And KT knows exactly what KT wants to do. Sadly for Kingzone, I don't really think they know what their strongest 5 champions are. If they had to play blind pick, I don't know if they'd be on the same page.
Yeah, KT definitely a team to kind of take over the game and play their own game. Sometimes that game is, you know, falling off a roller coaster. So could be good for Kingzone if KT's having a bad day, but at least for KT fans, you know that it was their fault, whether they won or lost. So that's always good for them.
Good to hear again from Griffin. Again, now they're 2-2 in the second round robin. Kingzone 1-3, Valdez. The post-Rift rivals hangover. It's not looking good for Kingzone.
Yeah, so guys, that's going to do it for match number 1. We'll be back in 25 minutes for the next one.
I see you slowly on your own. Oh, oh. I see you always wanna
It's been many days, many ways misled, knowing that I'm tiptoeing on both sides of the fence, trying to figure it out, but I'm living in doubt. So scared one day that your grace might run out, cause I'm so far from perfect, so close to worthless, feeling no good for worship, trying to understand this life that you purchased. Am I just a man destined for death, or do I deserve it? You died for my sins and that's the verdict. You carried out God's true will and purpose with urgency for the sake of love, forgiveness and eternity. Your grace is enough. I got so many questions, so many things to change. I'm calling out, but sometimes you're far away. I get discouraged and seem to always fall flat, but that's when you pick me up and bring me back.